Hey guys, welcome to the Big Fail podcast. We are here with Mr. Deepak Shetty. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. It's an honor to have you. So, for our new listeners, Big Fail is a podcast aiming to give you some quality insights based on the lives of successful individuals. We often find that their hardships also had an equal or more significant role in shaping their success. And so, we're here with a conversation to find that out. All right. So Mr. Deepak Shetty is an NITK alumnus who is currently the director of Z-Axis Technology Private Limited. He's also on the advisory board of LNES and also provides private advising of corporates on marketing strategies. And he's an investor too for B.tech startups. And Mr. Shetty has also played a huge role in bringing Samsung into the Indian market. And he's also worked in Moser for like around, I think, 10 years with respect to fields like sales, operations, and marketing also. So, sir, you have worked in an extensive range of roles, panning out in different fields. So let's maybe first look at the beginning. So, you were an undergrad in metallurgy at NITK. So, how did you change to marketing and sales? Like, were you always inclined to that, or did your interest suddenly change?
Well, I must share a little bit of this insight that I have now that we are speaking after so many years. So I guess I can take the liberty to speak about it. When I got admission, I was part of Gujarat quota. So I came from the Gujarat quota of seats that were there. And I had an option to choose to either pick up metallurgy in KREC. In those days, it was called KREC, or go and do mechanical, which I was inclined to do in Trichy.
All right.
But my hometown was Mangalore, and of course, we used to visit once in 3-4 years in those times. So I thought maybe I should go back to Surathkal rather than going to Trichy. And then somewhere, at that time, my thought was that I don't know metallurgy. I don't know anything about metallurgy, and I'm just taking it because it's in KREC. And I took it with the understanding in my mind that I'm going to go there and figure out a way to get out of metallurgy and maybe get into mechanical, which I wanted to do. So that's how I went there. And in fact, that was my first, I would say, misunderstanding or failure I would start with, where I presumed that I would be able to change my stream after getting into KREC. I went and met the registrar, I met the principal, and I said, look, I don't want to do metallurgy, I want to do mechanical. So they said, look, chances are very, very remote. But after about a year, many times some children do drop out, or people who would have got admission elsewhere in other colleges, they might drop out and there could be vacancies. So you could try at the end of 1 year. So with that belief, I actually started my journey in KREC and now in NITK. And then after about a year, when I thought I'll be able to swing this, I went back again to the registrar and said, no, now I need my mechanical. And this is, no vacancies in mechanical. There is one vacancy in civil. If you're interested, we can give you civil. I said, nahi, kaun dhoop mein jaake khada rahega? Civil in my mind was like, jaake dhoop mein khada rehna padega. So I said, nahi, I don't want civil. If you can give me mechanical, it's fine. Otherwise, I'm fine with metallurgy, because metallurgy is, in my mind, again at that time, it's a specialized mechanical engineering part of it. Otherwise, I'm fine with this. So I stuck on to metallurgy, and I thought I'll become a metallurgist. That's how I started my journey. Then we had these industrial tours which used to happen, and we had to go to some factories. So one of the factories that I went to was the Bhilai steel plant. And I realized that if I have to work as a metallurgist, I have to work near the blast furnace, which is like very high temperatures and all. The very thought of seeing myself standing there near the blast furnace, I said, no, this is not what I want to do in life. Ye pata nahi kaise am I making these choices? And in those days, of course, we were young and we were brash. So we used to just take decisions on the spot. I said, no, this is not what I want to do in life. So then I was wondering, what do I do now after my metallurgy? So luckily for me, my first campus job that I got was a company called Fusion. And some of our seniors were already placed in Fusion. Fusion was a welding electrode manufacturing company based out of Jamshedpur. And I got shortlisted and I got a job, and they gave me a techno commercial job. So my job was to first learn about welding and do various kinds of weldings, but also go and then sell it to dealers and distributors and teach customers why they should choose this brand. So that is where I had my first brush with the sales side of the business and not so much of engineering. I was happy because it wasn't standing next to the blast furnace, which is like several thousand degrees. I said, "Usse to ye better hai." And this is how I started my journey. But yes, KREC is a very, very eventful part of our lives. And I think whatever we are today is what KREC has shaped us into. And we had great times. I mean, our batch of 85, we still catch up and meet. And we went back to the campus also for our Silver Jubilee. And it was real good fun to go back to the campus.
Great, sir. Great. Nice. So there's this notion that we're all a victim or a victor of our circumstances. Yeah. And so after your undergrad, you went on to pursue postgrad in marketing. And so I want to know, what were the hurdles you faced with respect to the circumstances that you couldn't control? And even with respect to venturing into corporate life after that, what were the choices you made and the circumstances you faced at that time?
Yeah. In fact, my first exposure of the job with Fusion was in my life. I've lived in a very cushy house which my parents provided. And the first job took me to Jamshedpur, and for two, 3 months, we were there for training. And we were put in the outhouse, and there were like, a bunch of guys living in the outhouse of a bungalow. And to me, it was like a sort of come down in life. I said, where are we living? जहाँ हम अपने servants को रखेंगे, वहाँ हमको अब जाके रहना पड़ रहा है. I said, this is like, suddenly we were like shaken out of our, this thing that, boy, this is the beginning of your life and this is how you start. And that's where we started, and then came to Bombay, and I was working in Bombay office. And it was good fun as we went around trying to sell products. We faced a lot of failures. People would not want to buy a new brand. And it was a struggle to try and convince customers. So a lot of learning went along all the way, and we kept honing our skills as we went along as to how to make that sale happen. And as long as you keep that interest alive inside you, that you want to keep experimenting and you don't want to accept failures as you get them, you will keep finding new ways of handling a new customer. And some of them would succeed, some would fail, but we went through that journey and we learned as we went along. Then I got an opportunity where the company said, we are opening our new branch in Delhi. Would you like to go to Delhi? So I thought, wow, it's a good change for me from Bombay, and why not experiment with Delhi? So I came to Delhi, and Delhi was another different experience where I learned to live with 2, 3 other people. We had an office cum residence, and we learned to make new friends. And then we realized that the culture in Delhi is different from the culture in Bombay, and we had to figure out how to survive in the culture of Delhi. And everybody kept telling us that, if you learn how to sell in Delhi, you can sell to anybody in this world. So we said, okay, let's take this as a challenge.
Yeah.
And we started working in Delhi. And it was a good journey again. We learned how to sell. But then I realized that, my growth cannot happen as an engineer degree alone. I need to beef it up with another degree. So either I get into doing masters in engineering, or I get down to doing MBA or something of that sort. That's where I applied for MBA courses and MBA entrance exams. And after a year of my working, when I tried, I did not make to the cutoff. So again, I faced failure, and I was wondering, where did I go wrong? And being young and brash, I don't know whether you want to look at it as an asset or you want to look at it as a weakness. But it was like, we had this thing ki dekha jayega, karte hain, let us do this, dekha jayega. So we had this approach, and while we failed, we said, ठीक है कोई बात नहीं, दोबारा देंगे, दोबारा करेंगे. So that is how it started, and I again took the exam the next year. This time I did a little more of extra preparation with for the exams, and I got through. And I got through to Wellington, and I got to do choose marketing, which was what I wanted to do now. Because having done that sales thing in Fusion, I realized that I'm more tuned to selling and marketing than so much into engineering. But yeah, I must admit that the engineering degree that we have has been like, nobody can bullshit the engineering side to us. If somebody does, we will know. So to that extent, we were okay enough in our engineering. But then in terms of career choices, I realized that marketing is what I wanted to do. But then it was a tough call because I was going to quit my job and get into studying again. And my father was retiring. And he very clearly told me, look, I cannot support you. If you want to study, you have to do whatever you want. So you have to figure out how you want to survive. So that's how I started. And then I said, no, dekha jayega. Again, the same thing, attitude, where dekha jayega, karte hain. And I mean, even these studying at Wellington, which is now called V School, was also a good, memorable journey, I would say, because I made quite a few good friends, boys and girls who were there with us, and they looked at people like us who came with experience, who would understand the theoretical concepts much more easily than they would, because they were fresh from college. And we were looked upon as guides to teach them or explain to them how to understand it. We would do that part. And in return, we had a barter that we would be bunking classes and they would make notes for us. So we had the journey again where I and another friend called Julio, we used to go and do market research projects in those days. So as field investigators, we went around doing filling up forms, asking questions to people, and for every form we would get some money. That is how we supported ourselves by actually working part-time and making money and having friends in the college who would make notes for us. I don't know whether I should say it or not, but then in those days, what the girl would do was she had two notebooks and she would put one page and another page of this notebook over each other with a carbon.
Oh,
so she would make, and the carbon copy would happen in the notes.
great.
That is how the notes would get ready for us. And we, of course, got a lot of good food also because they would bring good food from home for us. And we were those poor guys who would, be struggling outside to make ends meet at the same time trying to study. Yeah. But we did well. We did well. We graduated well. And campus, I got into Godrej. That's where I again started my career journey. This time I was taken into Godrej to work for the service department. So again, in service department, my task was a very unique task. In those days, Godrej wanted to computerize their service center. So they wanted to build computer systems and they wanted users in the service department to be trained. So we had those Unix platforms in which we had to get products developed. And my role was an in-between role. So I was like somebody who would go and understand the user department, which was the service department, and convey that to the information technology guys, who would then develop the software and write the codes, and then take it back to the user department and see what all changes were required to be done, so on and so forth. So I became an in-between guy. So in the process, I realized that I was learning about information technology. I was learning about service. So about 2 years, I did this, almost about 1.5, 2 years, I did this. And then I realized that this is enough. I don't want to be in service department, because one of the biggest challenge I had in service department was I would only listen to complaints on refrigerators. So my image about Godrej refrigerator was such a lovely refrigerator and such a great brand. But in the service department, when you sit, all the 100 calls which would come would be all saying, I have a problem with my refrigerator. Nobody said that, oh, my refrigerator is great, because everybody had a complaint.
Yeah.
Only then they would call the service department. Otherwise, that's where I again got my next learning, that the number of refrigerators that got sold were, let's say, 10 lakhs, and there were 100 people who were complaining.
Mm.
So it was not that the refrigerator was bad. Refrigerator was great, but it was only those 100 pieces had that problem. And because you're sitting in the service department, you understand that every refrigerator is a problem. So
Yeah.
I got my next learning there. Look, service department is not showing you that it's a bad product, but actually shows you that it's a great product. That is what I used in my sales. And that is where I would say I was very lucky, because people who went into sales did not understand the product from a service perspective.
Mm.
And without that knowledge of service, when they grew up the ladder and became branch managers, their attention was more for sales and not for service. Whereas my attention was equally good for sales and equally good for service. Because of which I got good opportunities to grow up faster,
Got it. Got it.
because I would understand the business much better.
Yeah.
So another learning that happened for me, that look, it is not just service that you should know service as a business, and most people who do not focus on service find it difficult later on in life. And then I got opportunity. Then again, I was typically young, impatient, and then G was trying to do joint venture with Godrej. It wasn't happening, and I was very hungry to grow up fast on the ladder of the corporate world. So I again took a risk and I decided to quit. And I went to the Middle East.
Whoa.
So I got a job in the Middle East. I got a couple of jobs when I applied, and I chose to go to Bahrain.
Mm. Okay.
And I made my biggest blunder there again. While I was in Godrej, I was handling a huge branch like Maharashtra, which was a huge state. I was handling that for refrigerator business. But when I went to Bahrain, I realized that in 15 minutes, you finished the whole country. The territory was so small.
Yeah, it is.
And of course, in those days, we didn't have internet. We couldn't do research. We had to rely on people who would be there who would tell us something about it.
Mm.
So I made a big blunder, I thought, in my life when I went to Bahrain, because I realized that in half an hour, my country is over, and where do I go and sell? Okay, and I realized that looks like I've made a stupid mistake. And I went and told the man there that, look, can you expand my territory? Can you give me Middle East? Can you make me sell in Dubai? Can I sell in Oman? He said, but we don't have any offices there. We are only in Bahrain. So I found that, I had made a big mistake. Yeah, in life. But luckily, I had got married by that time, but I didn't take my wife with me.
All right.
So I said, no, Middle East, I'm not so sure. Should I take my wife at this point of time? I said, let me go first. And let me check the place out, and then I'll ask you to come over. So within 6 months, I realized this is not what I want to do in life. But this is one thing I have learned in my life, that, if I don't like something, I'll quickly take a call and move out. I won't hang around for too long.
Yeah.
This is another learning which I would share with you or with the audience, to understand that, look, if you think that you are in the wrong place, don't hang around for too long. Just move.
Yeah.
I did that. I quit the job, came back, and my wife was from Delhi. So I came back to Delhi without a job. And I kept wondering what to do. But Providence also works for you. That's what I realized, that, if you are willing to take the risks, things do happen.
Mm.
So I took out a list of, consultants, and I started calling on each one of them. In those days, of course, we didn't have mobile phone business. So it was more of like, you go physically to meet them. You have a landline and you pick up the phone, fix an appointment, go to meet somebody. So I did that at one of the places. And as I walked in, and there was somebody who was sitting in the office of that consultant's office. And I shared my journey so far. And it turned out he was a regional manager for Amtrex, who was looking for a branch manager.
Oh.
So he was from the consumer durable industry. I had come from the consumer durable industry. So for me, I would say that is providence. And it just happened. So like, we started talking. He said, oh, let's talk now. And he had come to give his requirement to the consultant actually.
Oh,
So then we started talking. I said, yeah, it makes sense. And I am from the industry and I understand. So I joined them.
got it.
And my journey again started from the consumer durable business in Delhi now. So this is how my journey has been happening. And then, of course, from Amtrex, I moved to Samsung.
Mhm.
And I still remember when I went to Samsung and I called up my father to say that I'm quitting Amtrex. He knew Amtrex because it was part of the Lalbhai group, and Lalbhai group was big in
Yeah.
Gujarat, where we came from.
Mm.
So he said, Samsung? What is Samsung?
Mm.
I don't know what Samsung is. He said, are you sure what you're doing types?
Mm.
And by then I had done some amount of research, so I knew Samsung. And during my Middle East stint, the first tape recorder that I bought, which was the cheapest available in the basement brand, as we call them,
Mm.
was a Samsung.
Oh.
So I bought home a small two-in-one, which was a Samsung two-in-one, and I knew that brand, and the product was good. I said, yeah, this is something which I can.
All right.
That's where I started creating the brand for Samsung.
Got it. Yes. So, since you've worked with companies like Samsung and Moser Baer, and like, do you have any specific instances from that time that shaped your learning? Especially because you had to establish them in India, and like you played a huge role in it. Especially like coming working from before the dot-com era till now. So, what were the learnings?
Yeah.
from these?
See, when I joined Samsung, like I said, nobody knew Samsung in India.
Mm.
I knew Samsung because of my brief stint in the Middle East.
Mm.
And there was not much of baggage because Samsung was a discount brand in the US markets. It was a discount brand in Europe. But in India, nobody had any knowledge about Samsung. And in Korea, there was recession at that time. I'm talking of 1995.
Okay.
Korea had recession, and Korean government had given a mandate to all the companies that please go out and develop business for yourselves outside of Korea, because there's no economy really, there's no growth happening in the economy in Korea. So companies like Samsung and LG were coming to India, and they went to what was known as BRICS in those days. BRICS was Brazil, Russia, India, China, and one more country. So they would go to these countries and establish themselves. And since they were new in India, the chairman had allocated a budget of as much as $1 million at that time.
Wow.
I'm talking of way back in 95 to create the brand of Samsung.
Oh.
So now my task was to help build the brand of Samsung from what, I mean, nobody knew it in India, and our job was to create that brand. So we were a team of about 4 people, 4 Indians who were working with the Koreans. My learning there was initially it was very difficult to work with these Koreans. One, they didn't know English,
Right.
and they would speak in tutti frutti English and would try to communicate. So half the time our effort was lost in trying to understand what is he trying to say,
Mhm.
and then translate that into action.
Yeah.
So many times we would get our uh, understanding wrong, and we would end up facing the Korean who would look at you with the big red eyes and saying, I'm going to sort of eat you.
Oh.
Why do you do this? And, like we are wondering, we don't know what we did wrong. But all the time we are trying to understand, because the issue was of culture, issue was of language. Then I got my first opportunity where he wanted me to go to Korea. He says, why don't you go to Korea and spend a month or two with our company there so that you will understand our products, understand our business. Now, in those days, Indians were not going to Korea. I mean, there was really no people, I mean, we didn't have people going to Korea. So when he chose me to go, I again thought of it as why not? So I have this attitude of, generally telling myself, why not? Chalo, dekha jayega.
Yeah.
So I went, and I realized that it's a very different country. And while the folks were nice, they took care of me because I was a guest, so on and so forth. But I found that in those days, there were no Indian restaurants, nothing of that sort in Korea. So I had to eat the Korean food. I had to eat beef. I had to eat bulgogi, which I had never eaten before. But then at the same time, I had to act as if I am fine, I'm comfortable, I can manage types. And with that pretense, I did. And then they would expect me to drink. And
Oh,
their drinking session, huge bouts of drinking, and they would drink the whole bottle. And that's their lifestyle. So that is how they believed they should entertain people, and that's how you're supposed to get entertained. I also took it in stride. I would drink, but I never drank silly. But then this was one place where they would drink silly and I would also drink silly. So I figured out that it was a mess. But then I didn't know how to handle it at that time.
mm-hmm.
And I kept thinking, no, did I make a mistake again? Because this culture is difficult to understand, their language is difficult to understand, and then I have to work with them. But then luckily what happened was we figured out there were a lot of Samsung employees who had studied in the US markets, and therefore they were pretty good at English. So
Got
they were brought in as in-between people for us. So then we started learning how to work with Samsung, and it was a good journey after that. We created the brand of Samsung, and of course, then rest is history.
got it. All right. So you're a man of like constant hustle, constant learnings and everything. So what do you think are the gaps that exist right now in the education system in our country?
See, in my mind, I would say that, for example, in engineering, there is no training for soft skills.
Mm,
There is a need for all the students in the engineering sector who should be trained on soft skills.
got it. Got it.
Because what really you require when you get out in the marketplace is the soft skill part, in addition to your engineering part.
Yes.
So while engineering will take care of 70 to 75% of the requirement in the job place, but if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know how to behave, if you don't know how to tackle people,
Mhm.
it's very difficult life. And you can't just be that brash engineering types and say dekha jayega types.
Yeah.
So I think that amount of finishing needs to become a regular part of the course content in engineering colleges. That is one thing which I strongly believe in. So an element of management must need to be taught in the engineering colleges. An element of soft skill
Got
needs
it.
to get built in
Yes.
engineering college.
So exactly with PSUP, that's what we're trying to do. So we're building a community where people support each other, and we're also having like trainings for soft skills, because now we know like soft skills are so important, like networking, communication, understanding people, and that is so crucial to like move forward if you want to in the corporate life
Yeah.
also. And we're trying to do that with PSUP. Let's hope it goes all well. So
I'm sure it will.
thank you. So, what are some changes or learnings that you have had along your journey, and that you suggest that students should incorporate into their lives, like right now itself, like especially with respect to physical, mental, and like financial well-being? Are there any late realizations?
Oh, yes, I would definitely like to share this insight. I mean, I do it to my kids too. Whether they absorb it or not, I don't know, but I do my bit. So I think one of the things which has held me steady in my entire journey of my life is having physical discipline.
Mm,
Right from the time when I was with my first job, the first thing that I had learned was that 25% of my money I would keep aside as savings.
mm,
Come what may, I would never spend.
yeah.
And I would do that regularly every month. There were times, I mean, our starting salary in those days, if I remember correctly, in Godrej was about 2,800 or 3,000 rupees per month. But we were very clear. I mean, today you would go and have a dinner for 3,000 rupees. So it's like, we said nothing doing. 25% of this money I'm going to put aside.
Got it.
And in those days, of course, we had the Harshad Mehta era and all those things. So we were all very tuned on to the stock markets.
Mm,
So we would buy shares and things like that. And we would put our money away. So money was always kept aside and put into some of these instruments like shares or mutual funds. Because now in those days, mutual funds are not great, but shares are something which was big in Bombay, so we started investing. But that's one thing I would always say, that have that fiscal discipline of investing 25% of your money every month, come what may. You don't spend it, whatever happens. The other thing was, every time we got bonuses, that is another thing that we would again have fiscal discipline, that 50% of the bonus would be put away into savings. And it was only that 50% we would splurge. Maybe going and having a party, daru party, whatever you want to have. But that's just 50%, not more than that. So I think that fiscal discipline is very critical in one's life. The other thing is, I strongly believe, and which has held me steady, is this habit of taking risk. I have seen a lot of my colleagues who are from my classmates from engineering. Even today, when I meet them, I see them so unsure of wanting to take risk. I'm sure life has been different for them, so I can't really blame them. But it is more a case like they would not want to take risk, and because of that, they keep cribbing and remaining in one place, or in one career, or in one role. They don't expand. So to me, risk taking is something which we must build. And when we are young, we must take risks. It does not matter, even if the decision is wrong. I mean, own it up. Yes, I made a wrong decision, but take that risk. Don't stop yourself from taking risks. People I have seen who were last benchers like us, we've done well in life because we were risk takers.
Yeah.
There were people who were like toppers in the class, in the school, in the college, but the issue was they were pure rote learning candidates. So they never really figured out how to handle life outside of books. And they found that difficulty when we came down to real life situations. So that is where I think that risk-taking ability is very critical, that we should have.
Got it.
The other thing is, we cannot stop learning. I mean, for me, like I have done my post-graduation, but there have been so many opportunities where I've tried to learn something new. Like I went to do a landmark course. I went and tried to figure out how to look at life. So I keep learning. Something or the other keeps adding to, I would like to add value. When I quit my job and I was jobless, I went and did a course in solar. I went and did a course in auditing air. So I would keep learning. So I always believe that keep aside some money which you will spend on your learning from time to time.
Got it.
And don't believe that मैं कल कर लूँगा. That kal never happens.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. Don't keep procrastinating.
Yes.
And I mean, I also realized that the other thing which I probably, if I were to look at my younger self and I would want to build that, is keeping myself physically active and physically, charged. While I was mentally charged, but physically, it was only late in life that I realized so many good things are there in life. I was so busy in the rat race. I was so busy trying to grow. And of course, when you reach the top, you actually feel like a loner because you can't really talk at a personal level with most people in the organization. So that's when you find that, you're a loner, and then you need so many other ways to keep yourself occupied. One of the things I learned was I started going to marathons for walks. I would not run, but I would walk. I would do the, 5.5 kilometer or the 11 kilometer. I once did a 21 kilometer also.
Okay.
So I would do the entire marathon, but I would walk. I would not run.
But
I figured that I'm going to, push myself to do it. Then I even went for a trek into the hills.
Wow.
I lived in the hills. I walked 50 kilometers in the hills. So I've done all those things. I've done, what we call as parasailing, when you jump out of beer billing.
Yes.
Paragliding. I've done that. Yeah. So now, of course, I still have a few things on my bucket list which I want to do. But yes, that's what life is all about. So you must enjoy. This is one thing which I would, I would look back at my young self and say I was so busy in the rat race all my life that many a times I actually forgot to enjoy.
Yes.
So I think that is one learning I would go back and tell youngsters, that do enjoy as you go along.
Got it.
Don't just stick to being in the rat race.
Got it. Got it. So thank you so much, sir. This I honestly wish we could do this for longer, but there's a time limit. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we put up a contact for you in case anybody wants to get in touch with you and everything. Thank you so much for everything, sir, and let's speak soon again. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I would definitely like to come back again, and I would specifically like to talk about my current role, where as an investor, we look at various startups
Mm.
and in the deep tech space. And I'm sure there are a lot of youngsters in the NITK campus who could uh, be looking at starting their journey as entrepreneurs.
Got it.
And we would love to fund them if they are in our space.
Got it, sir.
I look forward to more opportunities to talk to students uh, physically or through video conferencing opportunities that we can now create. And I'm open to any opportunities like these.
Got
We
it.
can pick up a specific topic and we can discuss that. And
Yes.
I would love to come back. And it's
Great.
my alma mater, and I'm happy to always come back and give back to the society, whatever way we can.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. This has been amazing.